I'm a little distracted.
What are you distracted by?
I'm distracted. I got a disturbing message when I was peeing
From who?
from, whatever. From the gods or from myself.
What was the message?
If you say it out loud, then you have to like really do something about it. The message was, so I have this like low grade anxiety nausea like every day.
Okay.
And every day I think I'm like, whoa, this is weird. Like I just feel like slightly nauseous and anxious. And even and then I was feeling it and then I heard the voice say green tea. Which, I mean, I could cry about that. I feel totally heartbroken. It might be. I mean, there's no other factor. Like, I'm fine.
Uh-huh.
And it happens like in the mid-morning.
Which is about
when the second cup hits.
Yeah.
And I mean, I just don't know how I'm going to live without it. I mean, I'm an addict.
I understand. Speaking from the other side,
yeah, please.
It's totally doable. It's totally doable. You're going to have about 3 months that are a little bit depressing. Like, that's how it went.
Just 3 months? Just 3 months. But
yeah. I mean, and it's not like, it's not like, it after a couple weeks, it immediately starts to go uphill.
But the people that don't drink caffeine, like, aren't as happy as me.
Yeah, but they also are not as nauseous and anxious as you.
Right. So I got to give up a little of the highs and lows.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't know if comparing me, like, I think even after you quit caffeine, I'm still not going to be as happy as you.
I hope.
Well, thank you.
You know what I mean? I just don't know if I'm afraid to find out who I am.
Yeah.
Without it. Yeah. Like, what if I'm just like regular? Like, what if I'm not as excited about things? What if my optimism is just a caffeinated high?
I find it unlikely.
This is so addiction stuff. Like, I am afraid of finding, I'm afraid of the truth.
Yeah.
I might go down to 1 cup.
That is addiction stuff. It's bargaining.
I'm so bargaining. It's like the thing that gets me up, and it's the thing, it's like that's how I wake up happy. I kind of pride myself on being a happy morning person.
Yeah.
How's your happiness in the morning going?
Fine.
You're okay? Well, you have magic.
Sure. I don't know. I mean, it was fine before magic.
It was fine before magic.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe I'll quit.
Yeah. I mean, if God is telling you that the green tea is making you sick, then...
This is... Yeah, I mean, I could get it. I'm such a... Like, I'm so into green tea that I can kind of mess with the God voice. I'm like, well, I don't know if it's God, Oh, no. All right, well... That's my disturbing message, but I feel kind of nauseous right now. So anyway, but we'll on with the show. Welcome to How to Be an Okay Person. I'm Lindsay Chrysler.
I am Robbie Carlton.
Do we do last names? I just did my last name. I feel like you always do your last name and sound official, and I added mine in. Anyway, what are we talking about?
It's just like that. So
okay.
It's just like that.
Well, you have something to say. You have something to say.
I have something to say.
And I'll probably have something to say about what you have to say.
I hope so. Otherwise, it's going to be a very short show.
I know you're thinking. I just had this thought while you're thinking of, like, is there anywhere you don't want this conversation to go? Like, is there something that you don't want this conversation to get into?
I don't think so.
For my sake? Okay.
Why? Is there something you think I don't want this conversation to get into?
No, I just had this thought of, like, I imagine you're going to talk a little bit about, like, Facebook, right? And so there's like kind of some obvious things we could say about Facebook. And I was just thinking to myself, like, don't be obvious, Lindsay. I
see.
I wonder if Robbie has any more obvious ones that I'm not even tracking. But I'm going to try not to be obvious.
I mean, say what's true, right? This guy, Jordan Peterson, who's an incredibly controversial guy. Apparently, I'm going to start with this. I found a quote from him which this so completely nails a certain thing that I have been paying attention to and caring about for a long time, and so I'm gonna quote him. This is more in response to what you just said than it is the subject of the show, but
That's why you like having a co-host.
that is one of the many reasons why I like him a co-host. Okay,
Ready?
here's the quote. If you are, so this is Jordan Peterson. He's an incredibly controversial figure. I'm not endorsing everything he says. I haven't kind of investigated him in enough detail to be able to kind of have a real position. But definitely some of the things he says I have really liked, and this is one of them. If you are not using your own words, it's funny, I'm quoting someone. If you are not using your own words, you are the puppet of an ideology or another thinker, or your own impulsive desires. You can tell when you are speaking like that because it makes you feel weak. Makes you feel weak and ashamed. And you can localize that feeling physiologically if you listen to yourself talk. When you are speaking properly, you will experience a feeling of integration and strength. And when you are speaking in a deceitful or manipulative manner, you'll feel that you are starting to come apart at the seams. What you need to do is practice. I'm going to emphasize this part. What you need to do is practice only saying things that make you feel stronger. At first, you'll notice that almost everything you say is a lie. It's either a lie or someone else's words.
Oh,
It's very hard to find your own words. And you don't actually exist until you have your own words.
wow. A little dramatic, but I like it.
He is a little dramatic. And
Wow.
that's kind of his way of saying, and there's things about that I would kind of question. Like I think the weak and strong thing is interesting. I guess it's not my compass, and I think that's probably a typological thing.
Totally.
Right. My compass is aliveness.
Same. I think mine is too. Mine is like, I feel excited or I feel, ooh.
Yeah.
Maybe that's not aliveness. That might be a shame thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm either on or I'm off. It's like on or off.
Right. And that thing, that practice and that act of looking just looking for the true way of saying it, whatever it is, and not just regurgitating these kind of mental tapes that you've picked up.
Yes.
Right? Like, so much of what people say is noise, right?
Yes.
And it's kind of like, it's noise, and it's just it's just a repetition of something that they've heard. It's just like, yeah, it's like that. And it's funny, we're getting into the sauce a little bit here.
Are we?
Which is, yeah, I mean, that's the sauce, right? Like, the sauce is a lot of what's so
annoying about it.
annoying about the sauce is like, it's like, you don't actually mean that.
Yeah.
Right? And
This is so good. This is so good. This is why you're such a great communicator. And this is why you always think so long before you speak. Not always, but you do a lot of the thinking.
Right. It's like actually finding the thing to say. Now, what's tricky about this, and I don't know, what's this face mean?
No, I just, sorry. I'm doing a weird thing with my mouth, you guys. I was just picturing like the words that come out of your mouth. You treat them pretty, I don't want to say seriously because then that makes, but kinda like.
Well, here's what I'll say. And the practice that I adopted, which I learned, I kind of like, I think I was already doing it some way, but I had it kind of made explicit by, and then I practiced it kind of really intentionally by Brian Bayer and Decca Kunov of the Authentic Man program that I worked with for many years. And they kind of talked about this practice. And the practice is, don't say anything that you don't mean.
So good.
Right? Like pay attention. And so like the classic example I talk about is like, you go to the grocery store and the checkout clerk says, how's your day? How are you doing? And you say, oh, I'm good. And it's this completely automated exchange, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like this robotic kind of like docking mechanism between two people in that particular social interaction.
Mm-hmm.
And there's definitely like it's kind of empty of communication, right?
Yeah.
It's empty of like actual
feeling.
connection, like of me actually saying what I mean. And so like that's one of the things. Like if you're in the line and you're having a hard time, then say what you mean. Like they say, how are you doing? And you can either say, I mean, I one response to that is like, do you actually want to know? Right? Because they probably don't, and it kind of feels like they don't. And you can say that like, oh, do you actually want to know? Like as that it's aggressive towards them, like it's kind of like a like shaming them for their unconsciousness, right? But like not like that, but like actually just ask the question, like, okay, that's a person doing their job, being normal. Do you actually want to know?
I would say it like, do you really want to know?
Yeah, I mean that's even better.
I would
right?
do a little more charming, seductive on that. Yeah, just
which probably
to make
helps
everybody a little more comfortable.
Which is probably helps medicine go down because it's easy to hear that as an attack, even if the one who's saying it is not actually holding it as an attack.
Yeah.
Anyway, or you can just say, I feel miserable, or like, I'm kind of distracted, or blah, blah, blah. And there's a whole practice of doing that, right? Like, there's a whole practice of aligning your words with your intent. And, like, only saying what you mean. Another place, like a friend of mine was just in an argument on Facebook, and like they said something about like blah blah blah. This happens all over academia. They said this happens all over. It's like rife in academia. Like this is happening all over the place. And I'm like, you actually don't know that. Like you're not in academia. Like you're not like that's something you've heard, right? Like it's an idea that you've heard that you like the sound of and that kind of supports your point. And so you're gonna kind of say that, right? But like, how do you know that that's rife in academia? You read a couple of articles, right? But I mean, this is getting into the thing now. Like, you don't like reading stuff online is not a useful source of truth at this point. Like, it tells you something, but it does not tell you a whole big piece of the picture. So anyway, that's just another example of this kind of and there's so many, but just like all of the ways that we speak unconsciously. So I think it's like a super powerful, useful practice to just for a day maybe, or just for like a week if you want to be really hardcore, is to say, I mean, I ended up kind of consciously practicing it for months and months and months. I mean, it became like a value, right? Where it's like, this is what's important, right? Like, this is the most important thing.
I was talking to my friend the other day, and I was kind of coaching her and helping her. She was really stuck with some like relationship stuff, and it was going really well. Like I was in the sweet spot. Like I was, I just like, it was it just felt on. The conversation was really, really good. And then I said, about 3/4 of the way through, I said something like, well, if you don't complete it with this relationship, it'll just show up in the next one. And she was like, is that true? And I thought, I don't know, actually. Like, and I felt the energy go down when I said that. Like I was starting to get into like pulling out. I think what happened was I had gone as far as I could with being helpful and authentic and real. Like it was on. And then I think it peaked, and it was time for me to say, like, to just be in the I don't know with her, or be in the like, this is a pickle place. But then I started kind of like shoving down shoving some spirituality in there. Like some just like catch phrases.
Right.
That people have used on me that have gotten me to kind of like stop talking, basically. and when she said it, I was so the delight. Like I think for me, it's like delight, aliveness, whatever, truth, onness. It came back. I was like, I don't really know. And then it was kind of back to the question that we learned, that we love is, so actually scratch that. Like, what would you like?
Right.
Like, I don't fucking know if that's true. Like, maybe you can, like, I don't, but somebody said it to me and I just kind of regurgitated it. That's what I'm thinking of. It's like, wow, we do that all the time. And it's nice to have friends that kind of, I mean, I think a good practice for me would be, I think I do a lot of that natural, like in the checkout line saying how I really am. And I think people are always like, I know my mom is always like, wow, you're so like, you just talk to everybody. Like you're so like, I like engaged with the waitresses and stuff. I definitely have a filter that comes online, like be inauthentic to make other people comfortable. So something happens. That would be a good practice. But I think an even better practice for me would be in questioning when I feel that in somebody else. Like what my friend did to me. Like, maybe, like keyword maybe. Not sure about that.
Yeah.
I think that would bring aliveness to a lot of my conversations right now.
That makes sense. You think my version of maybe is, huh. Right? It's that like non-committal, huh.
You are deeply, deeply into both of these poles, you know, saying the thing that's true and questioning everybody's bullshit.
Yeah, I mean, this is why I don't hang out with people that much. But what I want to say is like I think this is and this is interesting because we're gonna get into this. Either in this show or the next one actually. Is I think that there are developmental stages here, and that move, that like authenticity move, that like saying what you mean move, is and specifically having that as like a very high value, right? Of saying like what I did is I like took it on as a practice. 5 minutes ago I said months, but I actually think it was years. Like I took it on as a practice because these people that I was studying with and learning from said I should, like suggested it because it resonated with me, and I ended up kind of holding it as this very high value in my life for years, and there are other things that are also valuable.
Yes.
And so now I noticed like I no longer, and there's something like can be a little obnoxious and self-righteous about that stance, right? Like
the radical honesty stance.
I am only ever 100% authentic, and you must be too, right?
Right.
And like that kind of like where you go into the checkout line and you say, "Do you really want to know?" Right? And it's got like a little bit of a spin of like, "Hey, wake up, like." Which is, you know,
yeah,
right, like that stance. So,
right,
or even if it doesn't, of just like, or like I'm just really sincere and like I just wanna speak my truth in every moment. And there's like all of these ways that it itself can become kind of like habitual, and that it disregards some
and rude,
exactly. It disregards some kind of social plumbing that like that's actually important, right? And that girl at the checkout line or that guy at the checkout line, like she's just trying to get through her day, right? And she needs to be basically polite to everybody in the line because otherwise people will be pissed, right? If she just like grunts at people or doesn't, if she's like authentic, she's gonna get complaints and she's gonna get people with attitude. So it doesn't really work for her to be like super authentic in that line, or him. I'm being super sexist, but
that's funny. I would say him for checkout person. I think like the examples that you've been thinking of, I think him.
Well, it's funny because we're flirting.
We're flirting, yeah.
So there she is, and she's and she's just trying to get through her day, right? And so so when she says, "Hey, how's your day going?" Like, yeah, she doesn't actually care. Like, what, you expect her to care about like 1,000 people that she's gonna talk to today? Like, she's not getting paid enough to care about those people. Like, no fucking way, right? That's Amma, right? Like, Amma can do that. The random checkout person at Whole Foods cannot do that. And so, just you, like, being an easy person for her to be in relationship with in that one moment is also valuable, right? For you just to be like, "Oh yeah, good. How are you?" And she says, "I'm good," right? And it kind of like greases the social wheels where you can then, and you can gauge it, right? Like you can just gauge it, right? There's some people where it's like, oh, they're actually available for me to be a little more real.
Totally.
And
they ask a weird question, or they obviously they're up for something.
They're just kind of there, and it just feels like, oh, we could actually chat. And then there are other people that are just getting through their day, and that's fine, right? It's fine. Like, This is why the show is not called How to Be an Excellent, Outstanding, Supreme Person, right?
Right.
Like, because come on.
Because, like, hold on.
Come on.
Yeah.
So that's my kind of flip side of this thing. And I do think it's but what I'll say is, if I hadn't done those years of doing it that one way, that was sometimes a little overly significant, and
Jacked
sometimes a little kind of like jacked up on the sauce, which we're going to talk about very soon. But like sometimes like a little, like that. If I hadn't kind of done that,
right,
it wouldn't be so available in the kind of more easeful way that it is now, where I can go in the checkout line, and if they're available, then I can say. Then they say, how's your day? And I say, I'm so hungry, I might pass out any second, right? And like just something like that, and they're like, haha, like it just opens up it's fun, right? It just opens up a dialogue.
Yeah.
So this is another situation where it's like there's a useful practice, but it's not the end game.
Mm-hmm.
And there isn't an end game. And this is this quote that you quoted me actually accurately. On your video the other day, we were talking about whether you
watched the video.
I did. I watched the video.
I didn't
say anything yet. No, I watched the video. But this is this quote, like nothing's gonna save you, right? And including this practice, right? It's just something
to expand your range.
Exactly.
So you can have more experiences that you would like.
Exactly. That is not what I was going to talk about.
I know. Amma, by the way. I don't know, like, people are not being radically, authentic with Amma.
No, but she's just caring about everybody. She's caring about 1,000 people.
She has signed up for that versus the checkout people.
Right. She's actually present with everybody.
Got it.
Like, okay, people aren't being authentic. Of course not. Right. It's a whole crazy
That's that whole thing.
But I would say that she's being genuinely present with people.
Yeah.
In a way that someone working the checkout line at Whole Foods typically isn't. And
right.
That's
fine, that's okay.
Right? That's fine. That's not their job.
Okay.
Their job is to bring up your stuff and take your money. So this other thing. I think a lot of people are in different ways starting to become increasingly distressed in relationship with the media in general and social media in particular.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Amen. Right? Let's do this.
Yeah. People are getting upset about social media and in different ways. And so one of the ways is that things are bringing people down, mm-hmm. right? They're feeling overwhelmed. Like I know for me in about this time, like June 2016, was just such a beating. Like that for me personally, like June 2016, so many incredibly shitty things happened that were kind of like presented on the media, right? And I'm not even going to list them, but it was a really, really rough month for a number of reasons. None of them personal, right? All of them kind of things happening in the world that upset me. But just in general, like the last kind of year and a half, it's been this like increasing intense, like the Trump thing, like Brexit in England, like and like the Bernie Sanders, like Hillary problem with the people freaking out about the DNC, like all of these things, and many more, but like that's just a handful, and people kind of just really getting stressed out. And how people describe it is they're getting freaked out about the world, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Like there's something bad, like the world is getting bad, like the world is really, really bad.
Yeah.
And what's actually happening is they're getting freaked out by Facebook, right? Like, have you ever seen Trump?
Nope.
No. You've probably never been within, like, I mean, you've been in New York, so you've been within 5 miles of him, but like, you've not been within 100 feet of him.
No.
Right?
Mm-mm.
No.
Mm-mm.
Like,
right.
So it's just to say, like, that freak out is 1 degree removed from reality. And I really want to be really clear. Like, I'm not saying like so you shouldn't freak out, right? I'm not saying that like that therefore like that we should all be living in these kind of solipsistic bubbles where we're only paying attention to what's like happening in front of our eyes. But just to notice that the medium that of the freak out, the medium of the information which is causing the freak out is Facebook, or it's the newspaper, or it's Twitter, or it's like, whatever your news source of choice. But like
But
so many
it's
people
Facebook.
it's mostly Facebook, right? I mean, I think
Yeah.
so many people use
And I
Facebook.
guess people that aren't even on Facebook are getting freaked out by the
Right.
information that they're consuming.
Yes. And so that's one thing that happens. Another thing that's happening is making people sick in a slightly less like neurotic way and a more psychotic way is this kind of these bubbles, right? Which everyone's talking about. Like, this is not at all a new idea that there are these kind of increasing like isolated bubble realities, these echo chambers, right? And so, we live in like a liberal echo chamber in Facebook. So I go on Facebook and everybody hates Trump, and everybody is like, and then there's like a fight between Hillary and Bernie people, but like everybody hates Trump, and everybody like, hates Brexit, and everybody hates, like, I have a lot of English people. I'm English, so I have a lot of English people and British people on my thread. And everyone hates Brexit, and everyone loves Jeremy Corbyn and Labour, and everyone hates Theresa May, and like, except for like, there's like 5 people on my Facebook feed that are not in the echo chamber that I keep there just to have like, just to have something,
some variety,
even though like all of them disgust me. I mean, like, really, I'm like, what the fuck? But I keep them on there because I think it's
smart.
Yeah, I actually don't want to completely descend into this echo chamber. Like, I want to know what
else is happening.
What else is happening, right?
Yeah.
And I know that there are these other echo chambers out there that are the exact opposite, where there's people who go on Facebook and everything is pro-Trump and anti the Democrats, and this is all like, this Russian thing is all just a Democratic conspiracy, and like Brexit is a triumph of the people over the liberal elites, and like they're taking their country back, and like, Jeremy Corbyn is a communist sympathizer who's going to trash the economy, and Theresa May is just like a good, solid, strong and stable lady. Like, this is British politics, so this is probably not happening in your echo chamber, but in my echo chamber,
I mean, this does not sound familiar at all.
Yeah, okay. So I apologize for those of you that are not tracking British politics.
Babies and bachelorette parties over here.
Yeah, well, so you have your own echo chamber,
yeah,
which is equally toxic.
It is. It brings up equal amounts of pain for everybody that I've talked to.
Right. And so there's another one, right? Like, that actually is another source of like real distress that comes from social media, is people looking at other people's lives and kind of comparing them and feeling like, shit, I'm not there. I'm not married. I didn't have this gorgeous wedding. I don't have the baby. Like, I don't have the career. Like, I'm not going to all these fabulous places, right? Like, whatever it is, you can go on Facebook and find someone in any dimension you choose. You can go on Facebook and find someone that seems to be doing better than you, right?
Yeah.
And so all of this, here's what I want to say. Like, for the history of humankind, right? Since we first descended from the trees, walked out of Africa, or now they're saying maybe walked out of Europe, but like wherever we walked out of, the best strategy about food. Okay, I'm going on a tangent here, but bear with me. So we're going to talk about food. The best strategy about food was eat everything you could find that was edible, right? Like, because there was like a basic scarcity,
right?
So if you found something that was edible,
eat it.
You should eat it. And if you find some fruit, you should eat it. And then if you hunt down a deer, you should eat it, right? This was a really good idea through all of human history. Up until in the West, kind of after the Second World War, where for whatever factors, a bunch of economic and technological factors, food basically became abundant. And super abundant. Like, there became more than enough incredibly nutrient-rich food for everybody. Let's just talk about America, for everybody in America.
Okay.
And now, did everybody get it? No.
No.
Because of class stuff and
Right.
Systemic stuff. But it was there and it was available, and a lot of people had access to it. But we were still in this habit of just eat everything you can get your hands on. That's the best thing. And so we got this obesity epidemic. We got this like diabetes. We got like all heart disease, like all of these problems that come from eating too much and eating too much rich food and eating too much sugar and like all of these things that people didn't. It just wasn't an issue until like the 50s, basically. And then it became an issue. It started making people sick up through into the last couple decades, where people caught onto this and started saying, oh, you actually, that's not a good strategy. That
Right.
just eat whatever you find is not a good strategy. You have to be more mindful about that. And you have to think about it. And you have to like all of these strategies, whatever it is, like eat healthy, right? This basic idea of eating healthy,
In
which
all the
was not
different
around
ways.
until like basically the late 60s.
Right.
And increasingly popular until now. It's like super mainstream. Like it's just like, it's kind of the norm for the American culture is like, you're supposed to eat healthy.
Yeah.
Right. And not everybody does it, but like everybody's there's like a cultural pressure to do it.
Yes.
And so, I think that's a good thing, right? We have to change our behaviors in the face of this superabundance. Okay. So the exact same thing is happening with information. For the history of humanity, until moments ago, information was incredibly scarce.
Right.
And any information is very, very valuable. Like they've done all kinds of studies about this, and like apes do this and humans do this. Like our brain gives us dopamine, which is the reward chemical. It's the chemical that gives you the feeling I'm doing a good job. Like
So
I'm
great.
achieving something here.
Great chemical.
Right? It's great. I think we talked about it in the
did
grid,
on
right?
a success.
A success, right? It gives you dopamine,
The
right?
best. That's why the grid is so amazing.
So you get dopamine when you learn something new. Because, 10,000 years ago, learning something new meant either that you had learned where some new food was, or some good shelter, or it meant you'd learned where some new danger was. And both of those are really, really useful. So, we evolved for our brains to reward us for getting new information. So right up until, beginning in the 20th century and then exploding at the end of the 20th century with the internet, until that time, information was as scarce as food. Right? And so it was a really good strategy. Just consume all of the information you could find.
Yes.
Like that was a good idea because there wasn't enough to make you sick.
Yeah.
Exactly like food. So now, we're at the beginning of the 21st century, and we have hit this super abundance of information. So there's so much information is available now in a way that it just has never been in the history of humanity. And we're now making ourselves sick by consuming too much information.
Yes.
We are getting the informational equivalent of diabetes, heart disease, obesity, whatever else, like liver
bloated.
failure.
We're so bloated.
We're bloated, right?
Ugh.
And it's making us sick. And so in exactly the same way
It's grossing
that
me out.
we had to learn how to more consciously manage our intake of food, we have to now learn how to more consciously manage our intake of information.
Love
And
it.
it doesn't mean don't.
No.
Like you can't starve yourself.
Right.
It just means be aware of it. Right.
What
and
makes
so,
you feel bad? What makes you feel good?
Right. And like
How much?
Like how long, like you go on Facebook and if you start feeling bad, it's time to stop eating.
Yeah.
Right.
And if you can't do that, maybe it's time to go off for a month, like a cleanse.
Right.
Like
Go
a
on
dramatic
cleanse.
change to feel what it feels like without it. So you get that stored in your body.
Yes, exactly. And to increase your range.
Yes.
Right. and to learn, oh, I can do that. I can get off Facebook for a month and
I lived.
nothing bad happens, right? Like I don't get left behind.
Right.
So yeah, and the idea that kind of the phrase that I want to use about this is like mental hygiene.
Ooh.
Right, and it's like it's not quite right because it's not, the analogy is not perfect because it's kind of like mental nutritional something, but anyway, mental hygiene, right? And I talked to someone about this and they were like, yeah, but what about emotional hygiene? I'm like, no, same thing, right? Like psychic hygiene. Like be and you know, just like with food, like there are restaurants you can go to where the kitchen is clean, and there are restaurants you can go to where the kitchen is kind of nasty and there's cockroaches and they just leave the chicken lying around uncooked for hours and like all of this gross stuff.
Robbie.
And this is my area.
Depends if
right
that
now.
restaurant has a lot of soul, you know, and you don't get sick.
Oh really? Is that how that works?
Yeah.
Soul is like an antibacterial force. It like neutralizes
I'm just
the
saying, like,
salmonella.
I've had amazing tacos from a taco truck in Mexico. I do not think hygiene was their number one value. I didn't get sick, but they nourished my soul. So I'm just being you right now, giving you a counterexample.
You can live in that reality. That sounds nice. Whatever.
Anyway,
Like in the same way, there are sources of information.
but there's dirtier places and there's cleaner places. There's places
Right.
that feel good and there's places that don't feel as good.
Right.
And your places that don't feel good have chicken laying around.
Sure.
Right. My places that don't feel good have bad customer service.
Great.
Anyway.
So yes. So there's good there's these cleaner sources of information and not so clean sources of information. And yeah, you can kind of like take a gamble on a Saturday night and get the kebab place or get the burrito, the questionable burrito, and like, you know, you're gonna survive. It's gonna be fine. But if you eat 24/7, the questionable burrito place, and I know because I have eaten 24/7 at the questionable burrito place in periods of my life, it ends up making you sick. Right? It ends up making you unwell, and I think that this is exactly what's happening right now.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. I could not agree more. I have examples, but like I have clients who are watching the news every day and they're really depressed. But I don't know. So there's some way of, or like people get really freaked out. People get really afraid with the political stuff going on. I don't know. I don't know what's better. Like, I'm not paying attention to it very much at all. And maybe that's like a privileged thing. Maybe it's a naive thing. I don't feel as freaked out. I tune in once in a while and I feel a little bit freaked out. So I don't know if I'm doing a good job or if I'm just like totally going the other way. I guess it's what would you like?
Yeah, and I don't know. And I think there would be people that would absolutely insist that you
stay tuned
as much as possible, and I don't think so. I don't think so. But
one thing I notice is like what I don't like is the constant commentary on other people's commentary. Like this like exponential seems like there's stuff that's happening and then there's stuff that's happening, then there's people that comment on it, and then there's people that comment on that, and there's people that get in fights about that. I don't know, that turns me off.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the things that like in the kind of like dirtier sources of information land, there's this website called Raw Story that's like a kind of liberally leaning website, and all they do is they just regurgitate like random clips. Like they'll regurgitate some like Stephen Colbert like clip, or like, you know, Trump getting owned by some French politician handshake or whatever it is, right? And it's all kind of geared towards this like self-righteous liberal stance of like, look what a fuck up the right is making of the world, and aren't we better than them, right? Like so and it kind of speaks to that, and like I've clicked on that links on that website so many times and gotten my little kind of self-righteous hit so many times, but it's like sugar, right? It's like kind of eating like a donut, right? It's not good. Like it doesn't actually, like expand my mind,
Mm-hmm.
clarify things, make me kind of feel maybe more sobered about the world, maybe more frightened, but like there's like a difference, right? And so
I like
I mean,
that,
what?
the sobered
Yeah,
about the world. That's a good. I do want to feel sobered about the world. I don't want to feel um not I don't want to feel like I'm avoiding the world. But
right.
sober about the world, that appeals to me.
Yes. Well, you like that. You like that
I
sobriety.
love that sobriety. It's just so good in there. Oh, it's so
Well,
good.
tell that to the you from half an hour ago that was freaking out about giving up green tea.
I
Because that's sobriety on the other side of that.
know. I'm going to do it. I'll report back. There's going to be a few episodes where I'm like, "Hi, Robbie. Hi. I guess we should talk about some stuff."
So I
Okay,
want to say one
continue.
more thing about this stuff.
Let's do it.
One of the things that it kind of actually started to freak me out a little bit and has had my gears turning is like as it starts to seem like we might be kind of seeing a light at the end of the tunnel in terms of the Trump presidency. Like
Mm-hmm.
one thing that I noticed is all of these websites, all of these news sources, all of them, right? Like every single news source in the world, including these like schlocky, raw story kind of like liberal echo chamber news sites, and more just serious news sources like the New York Times or the Washington Post, which and I could list the equivalents on the more right hand side of the spectrum, both the schlocky ones and the more kind of serious and integrous ones, right? And raw story isn't even that schlocky. There's way schlockier stuff at the left, and there's like incredibly schlocky stuff at the right. There's just like toxic nonsense on both ends of the spectrum, right? All of these news sources are doing incredibly well in the time of the Trump presidency,
Right.
right? Like they're getting so many page views. Everybody's like tuned to the news every day.
Yum,
It's
yum,
like
yum,
reality,
yum, yum, yum,
right?
yum.
They're gorging themselves. It's like it's reality television.
Yes,
On
that's
this
what it is.
grand scale,
Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Crisis drama is like
like every day is like today at the White House, blah blah blah, right? And like Trump leaks secrets to the Russians. Like, come on, like, but it's ridiculous.
then we all go nuts,
And
scouring
then
the
everybody
internet.
goes nuts, and everyone goes on the internet, and everyone wants to read all the things, and they want to hear that like this is the end of Trump, and like, or they want to hear like, oh, this is like liberal hysteria, and like the whole thing. When he goes, if he goes, when he goes, those people will be making less money.
Yeah.
And so there's this weird incentive structure, like they're disincentivized from him going.
Right.
Right? Like the New York Times will sell less papers when it's President Pence.
Yeah.
So there's something about that like I'm really interested in incentive structures and how you can create structures that create the world that you want, right? And so it got me thinking, and like I don't have like an answer to this problem. The closest I got is like, do we just need to, instead of like, because the press is like a really important function in society, right? And the function is shining a light on what's going on and reporting that to the public so that the public can make informed decisions. Like that's what the press is about. That's what its function is in society, which we really, really want to honor and we want to support and we need it. Otherwise you turn into some terrible creepy dictatorship, right? And everybody who gets into the press, like nobody's there like, I'm gonna make a killing selling lies, right? Like that's not why people become journalists. They become journalists because they think that's important, right? In some way or another, like they think that communicating the truth to the public is an important function, and it is. Everybody agrees about that. But then what happens is these incentive structures are such that the way that you get paid is you sell newspapers. The way that you get paid is you get page views and you get click-throughs, right? And if you don't sell the papers, if you don't get the click-throughs, if you don't get the ratings, then you don't get paid. And so there's this selection bias and this pressure for people to do whatever it takes to just get the click-throughs, right? And so I'm like, well, what's the alternative to that? And the only thing that I get, and I don't know, I haven't deeply thought this through, but my idea is, I think we need to hire people it's more like hiring private investigators who then write reports, right? So like if as a public we donated to a group of people who were kind of like in the role of professional journalists, but the relationship wasn't like, hey, I'm gonna pay you and you entertain me. The relationship is, I'm gonna pay you and you're gonna watch what's going on, right? I think that there might be a way to set it up such that the incentive structures are more aligned with like the actual function. So
we get more filter. So like we're paying them to filter for more truth, for more integrous material.
Right. As opposed
Which then
to entertainment.
kind of makes all those other people either kind of ship up or ship out.
But it goes with like, there's on the one hand, like there's our responsibility to like, okay, so say we kind of do something like this. What we also have to do is stop supporting the more schlocky ones, right? Like we need to disincentivize the ones that are the most distorted.
Yeah,
from
not buying the Oreos, like not buying the high fructose corn syrup stuff.
Exactly.
Start shopping locally, farmers markets. This is what's happening
in the food
world. So if we go with your story, it's probably going to even out this obesity.
Yeah, I hope so. I just want to mention that there's another fantastic cgpgrey video about the silos, specifically the echo chambers, which it's called. This video will make you angry.
Oh, yeah. I did watch that.
It's brilliant. So we'll link that in the notes.
It's just so good. It's so helpful for this.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of explains this mechanism. cgpgrey, when he describes these kind of mechanisms, he typically describes them in incredibly fatalistic and hopeless ways. Like, he's very funny and kind of charming and charismatic, but he never ever presents anything like a solution or like a positive direction. He basically, every time he talks about the world, you come away with the feeling that we're completely fucked and that that we're just like, the world is just systemically doomed. And I can't live in that world, so I don't. But nonetheless, it's a super useful and interesting video. I would just like add to that video a little sprinkle of like, let's ask the question, what can we do to improve things? Yeah. And so, I mean, so those are my thoughts. And I mean, I would love to hear from you, Linz, and I would love to hear from the people about this. Yeah. Like, what's up? Like, does this make sense to you? Like, what do we do? This makes sense
to me. I mean, I have felt so happy unsubscribing from newsletters that make me feel anxious has been a true joy in my life. I go through my mom's inbox and I unsubscribe because she online shops. Hi, Mom. She online shops. So then, you know how you get I mean, the shopping industry, you're not big into shopping. Like, they're insane. They are piranhas of the human spirit. Like, they are just ambushing inbox. It's like crazy. I don't subscribe to any shopping stuff. These are my ways. Like, I unsubscribe. I don't follow people on Facebook that piss me off unless I feel joy in how they piss me off, right? Like, I'm not like, if they're just kind of constantly nagging and irritating at me, then I unsubscribe. Like, there's ways to filter this information, and we need to be the authorities of this. Like, we need to be the guardians of our consciousness, and like, it is our responsibility to manage our state, and it's totally doable. It's not perfect. I mean, we're so impressionable with all the stuff going on, like advertising just being in the world, and I don't want to be immune to that. Like, I have a client who says she only does her shopping now off Instagram ads because they're so well suited for her, because they know her, the algorithm knows her so well that they have the best ideas. She like shops there instead of magazines. She likes it. She's like, I totally love it. I'm like, great. Like, she's using.
I mean, I have a version of that, like Amazon, right? Like, Amazon recommends me stuff, I buy it because Amazon knows everything that I buy, and it says, hey, you know, it's good. Like, it's good at its job.
Yeah.
Right?
They're tracking you really well. And you know that they're doing it. And that's the key that I think you're talking about, is the being aware. Like, I still eat pizza. I know that eating pizza for every meal.
It's fine.
I shouldn't have used pizza. Our dear beloved pizza.
The pizza diet. It's fine. Pizza is an exception. It's like like America.
That's true. Yeah.
But anyway,
okay, ice cream. So if I don't eat ice cream for every meal.
Right.
it's still okay to eat ice cream. And I've done periods where I don't eat any ice cream. So it's like, yeah, I'm just so supportive of this thing you're talking about, this hygiene. I feel like if you are getting sick from the information you are consuming, I think it's better to be like me and be a little naive and like click it all off than get intoxicating yourself.
Yes. Yes. And I would absolutely agree with that. Like, if it's making you unhappy, stop. Stop for a month and then reintroduce it at a dose level that, like,
right,
you can handle. If it's affecting your mental health, and this is in the kind of like, again, like this is such a naive distinction, but there's the neurotic and the psychotic.
What's the difference?
Pathologies. So neurotic is that you think there's something wrong with you, and psychotic is you think there's something wrong with everybody else. I mean, again, this like
I
super
do a little
naive.
column A, little column B.
Yeah, great.
Which one do you do?
I do way more neurotic than I am psychotic. This is a completely naive, ridiculous distinction, but the neurotic and the psychotic dimensions, the neurotic side is like it's making you sick and you can feel it because you feel miserable when you go on Facebook. The psychotic side is more, the symptoms are gonna be harder to identify, but it's more like that there's some like creepy, terrible group that's different than your group that are trying to fuck with the world and they need to be destroyed, and like this kind of like us and them group mentality, which is also one of the symptoms, right? And then the deep symptom is like, of all of this stuff, is that there's some way that you are not okay, right? Like there's some, like, and this is like in advertising, like the basic message of advertising is you're not okay yet, right?
Right.
But just buy this one thing and...
Wow, I'm realizing how much of stuff I've deleted over the years. Like, I'm just saying, like, I don't read magazines anymore because it used to have that effect on me. I really don't. Like, even, like, I mean, I don't even get manicures anymore. But when I did, I would still sneak in the magazines. I look at the covers when I'm buying groceries.
Yes.
And I feel tantalized. Tantalized?
Yeah, that's...
Yeah. Every time, like, Gwen is having a baby, she's 47. What? Like, I wanted to, I want it. Or the Perfect Summer Body, all these episodes are coming out right now of the magazines. And it's like, no, 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 no. You are not coming home with me. Mm-mm.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
All right, there you have it.
Let us know what you think. We want to hear from you. You can get in touch with us at H2BOK on Twitter, or on the howtobeanokayperson.com website. There's a contact form, and there's going to be other ways to be in touch soon.
Oh, and I just got it. I know you're every time you try to end, I say something else. But I just felt like, the people that actually are listening to this, when there's so much chaos of information right now, I feel grateful for people listening. Yeah.
Yeah, and I hope this has been a relatively...
I hope this is helpful and soothing to the soul.
Yeah, like digestible, nourishing...
Pizza with green smoothie.
Exactly.
Okay.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.